Hi, I'm Milton's mother. I spent $30,000 on a family vacation, and my own son looked me in the eye and said, "No ticket for you." They planned it all without me, mocked me in secret, canceled every reservation under my name. But what I found in my father's letter changed everything. Want to know how? This hook starts with a greeting, instantly states the betrayal, hits the shocking dollar figure, names the villain, Milton, shows the humiliation and sabotage, and ends on an unresolved cliffhanger. Changed everything. Want to know how? To pull viewers into chapter 1. It started with love. Or at least, that's what I told myself when I wired $30,000 to book the cabin at Lake Tahoe. A sprawling home nestled against the pines, with enough bedrooms for everyone and a private chef who promised to make those absurdly buttery crab cakes my grandkids couldn't get enough of. I arranged every detail, dates that worked for everyone, activities from paddleboarding to winery tours. I even made a color-coded spreadsheet, red for travel, green for rest, blue for fun. It wasn't about the money. It was about seeing their faces light up when they arrived, about finally feeling like we all belonged in the same photograph again. I thought I was giving them something they'd never forget. When you love someone, you don't keep score, I told myself. But someone hadn't responded in the group chat for weeks. No RSVP, no emoji, just quiet. A week before we were supposed to leave, I called to double-check flights. I asked my son if everyone had their tickets. His tone didn't change. "Oh," he said, "we didn't book you a ticket. You always say you don't like flying." I blinked. I could hear my own breath now. "You didn't... what?" He chuckled, casual as ever. "It's better if you rest at home anyway. We'll FaceTime you during dinners or something." I said nothing. Not because I didn't have words, but because I knew if I spoke, they'd come out cracked. Had I said I didn't like flying? Sure, years ago. And not enough to be excluded from a vacation I'd planned down to the brand of soap in each bathroom. I smiled through the phone, but inside, I could feel something tugging. A tear, maybe, or the quiet shatter of something deeper. I didn't let it fall. Later that night, I opened the trip spreadsheet again. Noticed my name missing from the flight itinerary, then from the Airbnb guest list, then from everything. How do you become invisible in a family you built from love? I scrolled back to the early messages. The photos I'd sent of the lake, my notes about which wine pairs best with grilled salmon, no one had responded to any of them. Thanksgiving, last year, that moment came back to me like a bruise finally surfacing. My daughter-in-law had laughed across the table, wine glass in hand, and said, "Your taste is a bit outdated, Mom." I had smiled, the kind of smile you use to survive. My son had said nothing, just sipped his drink and nodded slightly. Back then, I brushed it off. But now, it echoed. Was I always being dismissed quietly? I walked circles around the living room that night, rereading texts, holding my phone like it might buzz with some correction. It didn't. There was a quote my father used to say. He was a man who never raised his voice, but always spoke in sentences that stayed with you. If they don't see your value, stop paying the price. The next morning, I started making calls. First, the cabin rental, then the chef, the tour company. "Ma'am, you'll lose 40% of the deposit," they warned. "That's fine." "Do you want to explain the cancellation reason?" "No." I canceled everything, every dollar, every reservation, every plan. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I reclaimed what was mine. The group chat lit up within minutes. One message, then another, then silence. No one called. No one asked why. No one said, "We're sorry." Silence, I whispered, sitting by the window, is the loudest betrayal. Later that evening, my granddaughter posted a selfie at the airport. I recognized the bag behind her, the one I bought her for graduation. Her caption said, "Family trip, finally." I clicked on the comments. Dozens of hearts. Someone tagged me and asked, "Where's Grandma?" No reply. I shut my phone off. This wasn't a vacation anymore. It was war. The house had been quiet for 3 days. Too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comforts you. It was the kind that creeps into your bones, reminds you of things you tried to forget. I'd canceled a trip meant to bring the family together. No one called, no one texted. The silence wasn't surprising. It was familiar. A gray sky hung over Texas that morning. The air was thick, heavy, like it knew something I didn't. I stood in the kitchen, swirling cold coffee in a chipped mug, not drinking it, just holding on. My hands needed something to do. That's when I decided to go through the old photo boxes. They'd sat in the hallway closet for years, next to unused candles in a slow cooker I never liked. I pulled the boxes out and took them to the living room, sat cross-legged on the carpet. My knees didn't like it, but I stayed there anyway. I started flipping through the photos, weddings, birthdays, holidays, years of moments frozen in glossy prints. But something kept catching my attention. I wasn't in most of them. Smiling faces, cake cutting, balloons, laughter, but no me. I told myself maybe I was the one behind the camera, but even that excuse started to rot in my mouth. Then I saw it. A Christmas photo from 2010. Everyone was there. My son, his wife, my grandkids, even my sister and her husband. All of them wearing matching pajamas in front of a fireplace. I wasn't in that one either. There was a date in the bottom right corner, December 24th. The exact night they told me, "This year's too hectic, Mom. We'll just do a quiet one at home." I sat there staring at that photo for longer than I care to admit. My memory of that night came back clearly. Frozen lasagna, a glass of wine, reruns of old sitcoms. I had believed them. I remembered crying that night, not because I was alone, but because I thought everyone else was too. Turns out, I was the only one. I picked up the phone and called my sister, Wendy. She didn't answer, went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What would I have said? Thanks for the photo? This wasn't new. I just finally opened my eyes wide enough to see it. Later that afternoon, I walked to the mailbox. Junk, catalogs, and one envelope with gold trim. My name was handwritten across it, neatly, like someone had taken their time. It was an invitation. Family reunion dinner. Saturday, 6 p.m. Hosted by Zach Emily Harper. Zach, my son. The same son who didn't book me a ticket for the trip I planned. I stood there on the front porch with the invitation in my hand, trying to make sense of it. Was this some kind of apology? An attempt to include me after all? I looked closer. The RSVP card inside had a line that read, "Yes, I will attend with joy." Joy. I called the restaurant listed on the card. "Hi, I'm calling about the Harper reservation this Saturday." "Yes, party of 10, the hostess said. "Can I help you with something?" "Just confirming," I said. "Am I on the list?" She paused. "Let me see. Zachary Harper, Emily, 2 children, Wendy Harper, Z. Harper." That last name caught my ear. "Who's Z. Harper?" I asked. "Oh, that's for Zoe, the granddaughter, I believe." So it wasn't for me. The invitation was meant for someone else. I laughed, one of those bitter laughs that don't reach your eyes, slid the RSVP back into the envelope, walked into the kitchen and sat at the table, that same one I'd bought when Zach was still in high school. All these years I thought I was part of something, but maybe I was just orbiting a family that had already moved on. I thought about that quote again. If they don't see your value, stop paying the price. I didn't RSVP. Instead, I walked back to the living room, opened the photo box again, and pulled out the Christmas picture. On the back of it, I wrote, "I was there, just not invited." I slipped it into the envelope. No return address. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I went for a walk. The air had cooled down. I saw my neighbor across the street struggling with groceries. I helped her bring the bags inside. She smiled like I'd saved her from drowning. "Thank you," she said. "You have no idea how much that helped." It was strange how a stranger could make me feel more seen than my own blood. I went home and opened my journal, not to remember, but to stop forgetting. I wrote down one sentence. I was always at the table, just not in their seating plan. As I closed the book, my phone buzzed. A new email forwarded from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: "You deserve to know what they're planning. Call me." I stared at the screen, heart beating faster than it should. I didn't know whose voice was on the other end, but I had a feeling something was about to change. Gloria's email sat unread in my inbox until this afternoon. I stared at it for minutes before opening. "They've been planning to leave you out long before the trip was finalized," she wrote. She claimed she overheard my son and his wife whispering at a dinner party last month, mocking me, dismissing me behind closed doors. I felt something heavy shift inside me, not anger first, but shame. Why had I ever believed I mattered? A quote from Maya Angelou floated into my mind. "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time." I closed the email and deleted it, but her words lingered like ash in the air. The silence I'd been sitting in wasn't peaceful, it was erasure. I needed evidence. I retreated to my home office, flicked on the overhead lamp, and rummaged through years of budgets, receipts, and old envelopes. In the stack, I found it, a carbon copy of a Christmas check for $12,200 made out to my son for family travel. The check was dated 3 years ago. I'd completely forgotten it. That trip to Montana they claimed was a family gift. I never received a single photo. Suddenly, it wasn't an isolated omission. It was a habit. The phrase "not this time" echoed in my mind again. Only now, I understood that I had convinced myself it was a one-time mistake, when in reality, it was always the plan. I logged into my bank account. There were 14 separate transfers under his name across 5 years: airfare, hotel deposits, emergency loans, birthday gifts labeled family support. Not once was there a note, "Thank you," or "I appreciate." My email history returned mostly unanswered plea emails. "I hope we can talk about this. I don't expect repayment right now." One message stood out. "You're the glue of this family, Mom. Can you help just this one time?" That one time had become a lifetime. Evidence I'd suppressed all along now rose into sharp relief. The pattern was etched in financial history. I didn't break down. Instead, I poured a glass of wine and stood by the fireplace, cold, unlit. I didn't cry aloud. I whispered into the room, "They never meant to invite me. They just meant to use me." Silence pressed in around me. In that stillness, bitterness sharpened into clarity. The deception wasn't emotional. It was strategic. I had honored every silence, never realizing it was precisely what let them slip further away. Later, I took out the trash and passed my neighbor Linda walking toward her front door. She paused, glancing at me, then said quietly, "I saw Emily at that spa last week. Her stories about getting away without telling family." She looked me in the eye. I nodded, forcing calm. She hesitated and added, "Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to keep." Her words hit harder than the betrayal by blood. A stranger's validation can sting more sharply than a loved one's indifference. That night, I returned home and opened my top kitchen drawer for the book of recipes I'd inherited. A worn cookbook slid out, and tucked inside was a USPS envelope. I pulled it free. Inside, a canceled refund check for $3,000 made out to me for a booking I never knew existed. The date matched the week I was told budget wouldn't allow me to go. The check was never cashed, never mailed. My breath caught. I held the check in trembling fingers. The entire time they claimed I wasn't part of the plan, they were hiding it behind paperwork. I stared at the numbers, the memo, the signature line I hadn't signed, the scheduling, the phrasing, all meticulously crafted to exclude me. All these years, I thought I was losing power. Now I saw I had just been denied it, and now I had proof. I had. The morning of the meeting came gray and windless. I drove slow, slower than usual, like my body was dragging my mind to something it didn't want to see. The building wasn't fancy, just the old town hall off Main Street, the kind with peeling white paint and a brass door handle that always felt cold. But walking in, it might as well have been a courthouse. 10 chairs circled the long table, 10 plates, 10 name cards. I counted twice, not mine. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee someone forgot to finish. My shoes echoed across the wood floors. I nodded at people who looked past me. I heard my name whispered once, low, clipped, like a footnote. Milton stood at the front, grinning like a talk show host. They introduced him as trip organizer. I felt my stomach drop, slow and bitter. A screen lit up behind him. Someone advanced a slideshow, family photos, scenic maps, then something else. Text messages. My messages. To Milton. My words. Let me know if I can help coordinate. I'd love to be included. Can I send the deposit? Flashed like headlines. Then someone, I couldn't see who, spoke into the mic. She begged to come. I stopped breathing. I gripped the back of the nearest chair. Cold wood beneath my hand steadied me just enough to keep standing. I looked around. Some smirked. Some looked away. One cousin's mouth hung open slightly, like even she thought this was too far. I stepped forward. Those were my words, I said, voice even. They were private, but I'm not ashamed of them. My throat tightened. They weren't begging. They were trying. I locked eyes with Milton. I wanted to belong. That's not weakness. That's loyalty. No one spoke. Not one of them. I turned back and spotted the seating chart pinned to a corkboard. Each name labeled in neat rows. Wendy, Jake, Emily, the grandkids. Mine, guest, waiting area. Guest. I wasn't family. I was a footnote. The actual layout mimicked the diagram I'd made weeks ago on my dining table. Only this one had been changed, deliberately. They used my work, erased me from it. I heard a whisper behind me. Jake's boy. Mom always said you like to be left alone. I didn't flinch. I walked toward the table, pulled out the chair closest to the door and sat. Not with them, but not outside either. When it came time for public comments, I stood and went to the microphone. I'd like to say something, I said. Milton's smile wavered. Verna opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. Let me finish. I won't be long. My voice was stronger now. I booked the house. I hired the chef. I coordinated the calendar. I did that because I thought family meant showing up, even when you're tired, even when you're hurt. I paused. But I see now, you only wanted my help, not my presence. Verna tried again to interrupt. I didn't let her. This isn't a debate. It's recognition. And for the record, I pulled a folded printout from my bag, holding it up. This contract lists me as co-organizer. The projector blinked behind me. Booking receipts filled the screen, under my name. A murmur swept the room. Milton cleared his throat. His eyes darted, lips pressed thin. For the first time, he didn't look rehearsed. He looked caught. I stepped back from the mic and sat down. Calm. No trembling hands. No rush of tears. Just still. And then he said it. Well, Milton muttered, adjusting his collar. Since things seem complicated now, I've decided to cancel the Lake Tahoe trip. The room froze. My breath hitched just slightly, but I didn't let it show. That wasn't a compromise. That was punishment. I got home just after 6. The front porch light blinked a few times before it steadied, a weak flicker I kept meaning to fix but never did. Funny how I'd always made time to fix what others needed, but the little things for myself always pushed to the bottom of the list. Inside, the air felt stale. I didn't bother turning on the overhead lights. I dropped my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, kicked off my shoes, and sat down in my usual spot, the armchair by the bookshelf. The silence hit harder than it ever had before. It wasn't just quiet. It was hollow. I scanned the room. Dozens of books and trinkets on the shelves. None of them really mine. Most were gifts. Things given out of obligation, things chosen by people who never once asked what I liked. I opened the stack of mail that had been piling on the kitchen counter. On top was a card from my cousin Joan. Inside, "I'm so sorry for how they treated you. No details, no need. She knew. We all knew." That was enough. I didn't cry. I sat back, fingers resting on the armrest, breath shallow but even. I wasn't broken, just tired. Somewhere deep in my chest, though, something started stirring. Not anger, not quite. It was heavier, stronger, like a refusal settling into my bones. I whispered it out loud, more for myself than anyone else. They keep mistaking my silence for surrender. I grabbed my phone, intending to clear out old threads. Swipe, delete, swipe, delete. Then I landed on one from Milton, dated 6 months back. I hesitated, opened it, read through the scroll. "You always overreact. You're imagining drama. We never said you weren't invited." I remembered feeling crazy back then, like maybe I had misunderstood. But then I pulled up the screenshots I'd taken, clear as day, texts from the family group chat, planning a beach weekend, flights booked, rooms assigned, my name, nowhere. I sat still, rereading each message, each time he made me question myself, each time I felt like I was the one out of line. That wasn't forgetfulness, it was a pattern. I whispered the words, "If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes someone else's truth." I hit forward, sent the thread to my own email. Subject line, "Truth Archive." I sat back, phone still in my hand, pulse calm. I went to the kitchen drawer, pulled out an old notebook and a set of colored pens. On a fresh page, I began a timeline. Every birthday I paid for. Every trip I wasn't told about. Every time I was called too emotional, too intense, too much. Blue for financials, red for exclusion, green for manipulation. The page filled quickly. Too quickly. I looked at it all and saw it clearly. It hadn't been accidental. It had been built, brick by brick, and I'd let it stand. Shame crept in, slow and mean, but I shoved it aside. I didn't owe them the protection of my silence anymore. "Better to see it late than never at all," I muttered. The act of putting it all on paper did something I didn't expect. It lifted the weight off my chest, gave shape to what I'd been carrying. It wasn't a burden anymore. It was evidence. Not for them, for me. Then came the knock. A soft thud at the door. I opened it to find a pale blue envelope on the mat. No return address, but the handwriting gave it away. Milton's wife. Inside, "If you're going to keep questioning everything we do, perhaps it's best you take some space from the family right now." It was wrapped in politeness, laced with poison. And then the kicker. "We all just want peace, but you're making that difficult." I read it twice, then flipped it over and wrote, steady and clean, "Peace at the price of truth is just another prison." I didn't respond. Not directly. I took a piece of notepad paper, scribbled out my own message, and taped it inside the pantry door. I was never too much. They were just not enough. It felt childish. Then again, maybe not. Maybe it was survival. Outside, the sun had started to dip. The garden needed tending. I threw on my gloves, grabbed a small trowel, and walked out back. The soil was soft, still holding heat from the day. I planted rows of lettuce, gently pressing each seed into the dirt. Creation felt like resistance, and resistance felt like healing. As I brushed off my hands, my neighbor called over the fence. "You doing all right over there?" I smiled. "Better than I've been in years." I meant it. Later, I put on the kettle, dug out an old vinyl. Aretha's voice spilled through the house like balm on old wounds. I let it wrap around me. Just before bed, I checked my phone. One new message. No name. No photo. You deserve to know what he said about you at the reunion dinner. Call me. I woke before the sun. No alarm, no sound. Just my heart racing and the feeling that I'd already missed something. The kind of wakefulness that doesn't come from rest, but from resolve. I lit the small candle on the dining table. Its flicker made the quiet house seem warmer, though the weight in my chest hadn't moved. I opened my journal. The page from a few days ago still stared back at me. The check in my name, the refund, the lie they tried to dress up as an error. It wasn't just a slip, it was a signal. I ran my hand over the page, then set the pen down hard. No more journaling, no more doubting. Today, I drive to Reno. I wanted answers, not apologies. I needed to look someone in the eye and hear the truth spoken out loud, not hinted, not implied, said. The ride was long and dry. I parked outside the hotel office and sat still for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than I meant to. Then I walked in, like any other guest. Mr. Spencer met me in the reservations office. Young guy, polite enough. He smiled until I gave my name. He typed, clicked, paused. Ma'am, your name wasn't confirmed for that date. I didn't flinch. I have a check refunding a reservation under my name. He frowned, typed again. Looks like a duplicate flagged by our fraud prevention system. Show me the reservation history, I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He hesitated. I stepped forward. Show me the IP address logs. Show me what triggered the flag. The moment stretched. He motioned for me to follow. We stepped into a back room. He brought up the data. There it was, my reservation. Canceled one day before the invitation email even arrived. Who canceled it? I asked. He read the metadata, the user ID tied to the family account, but the device ID, it wasn't mine. I didn't need a name. I already knew. I took a breath. Would that match a device registered to a man named Milton? He clicked through another system. There it was, confirmed. His phone number, his login. A strange calm fell over me. Can I request that record in writing? He nodded. We can email it to you. I looked at him. You do realize what this means? He swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. You're not the one who needs to worry, I said. I stepped out of the room and into the lobby. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old emails. There it was. Milton's message from February. Stop overthinking. Everything is fine. I remembered the way he'd say, you're too sensitive, like it was a diagnosis. But that lie, that one, that was meant to blindfold me before I even opened my eyes. The hotel manager handed me a printed cancellation form. It was signed digitally under my name, but the handwriting sample from a past check-in didn't match. They knew. I could see it in their faces. We'll forward everything to your email, he said, quieter now. I nodded. Thank you. Back in my car, I sat still for a moment. Then I opened my voice memos, played one back, my father years ago. You deserve to have receipts to show the world you weren't wrong. The words didn't sting this time. They steadied me. A new message pinged while I was driving home. Harlan. Meet me tonight. I have something you need to see. I didn't let myself smile. Not yet. There was still too much I didn't know. But the shift had begun. I wasn't fumbling in the dark anymore. I was tracing the wires back to the switch. I pulled into my driveway just as dusk settled. The porch light flickered again. There, under the mat, was a brown envelope. No postage, no return address. I bent down, picked it up. On the back, written in my own handwriting from years ago, just one word. Check. I didn't even make it to the coffee pot. My phone lit up before I could get out of bed, vibrating with back-to-back messages. Did you see this? What's going on? Are you okay? My stomach dropped before I even touched the screen, the kind of dread that seeps in before your eyes catch up. I opened one message, a forwarded headline. Family meltdown hits the internet. Another showed a grainy screenshot of a group text thread I hadn't seen, my name front and center. I walked to the kitchen in silence, the envelope from last night still sitting unopened on the table. I broke the seal, hands shaking less from fear now and more from that strange mix of rage and resolve that hits when you've been quiet too long. Inside were black and white printouts, cancellation logs, booking records, confirmation codes that were never supposed to reach me, all in my name, dozens of them. Flight, hotel, spa appointment, dinner reservation, all canceled under my login. Not once. But again and again, they weren't just excluding me, they were erasing me. I sat down and stared at the timestamps. One said 3:47 a.m. I'd been asleep. Another said I called from a device in Idaho. I haven't left this town in months. I dialed the customer service number, calm but direct. Ma'am, all those cancellations came from your account. If someone else accessed it, they did. You'd need to file a digital fraud report. I need access logs, IP addresses, device IDs, everything. We're not usually authorized. You will be today, or I'll escalate this publicly. She paused. Let me check with a supervisor. I ended the call and walked to the back window. The trees barely moved in the morning stillness, but inside my heart was a wind tunnel. Every thread I pulled led to another lie, another hand trying to silence me under the disguise of accident. That afternoon, it all caught fire. A meme page posted a picture of me, crying at the town hall meeting. I'd forgotten that cameras were even there. Someone must have taken it from the live stream and cropped it close. The caption, "Drama Queen strikes again." The comments weren't better. She needs a therapist, not attention. Always the victim. Even someone I once called a friend texted, "Saw you on Facebook, yikes." But I didn't cry this time. I didn't delete. I screenshotted every frame, every comment, every share. I started a folder. Evidence. Not of my pain, of their pattern. I remembered something Martha Graham said in a documentary once. No artist tolerates reality. I wasn't trying to tolerate it anymore. I was documenting it. And then I saw it, tucked in the comments, nearly lost in the noise. A user tagging me, but the name listed wasn't mine. It was Wendy's. Her home address written under a photo of my face. A mistake? Or a planted breadcrumb? I froze. The backlash wasn't just personal, it was calculated, and it wasn't over. For a minute, I felt that familiar pull. Delete everything, disappear, go back to quiet. But then a stronger voice, the one I'd kept buried too long, told me, no, not this time. I opened my laptop, drafted a post. I will not be your meme. I will not be your scapegoat. I am not the problem you're trying to hide. I didn't hit publish yet. Instead, I started tracing the comments, checking usernames, shared photos, bios. A few names were linked to Wendy, church committee, local theater group. One account had her husband's photo in the background. This wasn't just public shaming, it was coordinated. Just then, a file transfer pinged on my screen. Harlan, the raw footage from the town hall. From a different angle, one that caught Wendy whispering to another woman just before the picture of me was taken, her hand nudging someone's phone. The timing lined up. I watched it twice, 3 times. They weren't reacting to my tears, they were setting them up. And I had it. I exhaled slowly. The tide was turning. Then, right as I opened my post again, my phone buzzed. Milton. Going live in 5 minutes to address the accusations against Mom. Accusations. I hadn't even said her name publicly. My finger hovered over the post button. He was going live. But this time, so was I. I sat still, staring at the Go Live button like it was a detonator. The living room was quiet, too quiet. But inside me, everything was rattling. My hands hovered above the keys. The viral photo still echoed in my feed. My face caught mid-cry, the mocking captions, the fake sympathy. I'd seen it a dozen times today, but I let it sit right there. As a reminder, I didn't rehearse to convince, I rehearsed to center, my voice, my truth. When your truth is your ammunition, my dad used to say, you'll never run out of fire. I clicked. The screen blinked to life. The first few seconds were quiet, just me, breathing, blinking. Then it happened. A glitch, or so I thought, split the screen. A short video clip played, unprompted, not from my end. Wendy, Milton, caught backstage at that same town hall meeting, laughing. Wendy mimicked my tears, hand to her face, exaggerated sobs. Milton leaned in, said, she rehearses this stuff, you know, always has. Lifetime movie level. The audio was raw, uncut. No edits, no spinning. The comments came fast. Wait, what? Is this real? They laughed at her? I stared at the screen for a beat. My face flushed, but I didn't blink. Yes, I said into the mic. This is real, and it's been real for years. No theatrics, just truth. I've been painted as dramatic, emotional, unstable, while behind the curtain, this was the reality. I let the silence sit for a second before continuing. Then another window popped up. Not mine. An email. Legal letterhead. Sent anonymously, but forwarded midstream. Addressed to Milton and Verna. Subject line, property dispute, beneficiary rights. I clicked it open. It showed on screen for all to see. Zelfa legally owns 70% of the Tahoe property. That includes the house, the parking lot, and key rental rights. A notarized copy of the deed, witness signatures, dated 5 years ago, filed, binding. My name listed as co-signatory, the line that froze me. Any continued attempts to exclude Mrs. Zelfa from her legal share, monetarily or operationally, will be interpreted as fraud and challenged under California Civil Code. I read that line aloud. Then I paused. Not for effect, for air, for the weight of it. The chat exploded. She owns it? They lied to her. Wendy popped up in the live stream comments, throwing phrases like out of context and family misunderstanding, but her earlier video made every defense collapse before it could stand. Milton's face appeared briefly, red, tight-jawed, camera askew, and then vanished. Frozen, literally and metaphorically. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. You tried to erase me, I said, but you only made my voice louder. Then I ended the stream. Let it hang right there. I sat back, exhaled. The air felt different, like someone had opened a window after years of stale, recycled oxygen. A ping. Text from Harlan. I recorded all of it, audio, video, everything, back up on the way. I nodded, like he could see me. I got up, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water. My hands, still, my pulse, even. Then the knock. I knew before opening. Wendy. She stood there, sweater pulled tight, mascara smudged. She didn't cross the threshold. I never meant for it to go this far, she said. I leaned on the doorframe. But it did, and I shut the door, not slammed, just shut. I turned and saw it. An envelope sitting on my counter. My name in Verna's handwriting. I opened it slowly, like peeling back an old wound. Inside, the original contract. My father's signature. Mine. A line that read, Zelfa is to be treated as equal heir and co-organizer of all family-held ventures, especially Lake Tahoe. I pressed the paper flat with both palms. They couldn't pretend anymore. The morning air felt different. Not sharp, not heavy, just still. I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee warming my hands, and realized I wasn't bracing for anything. No alerts buzzing, no headlines, no accusations to disprove, just the quiet hum of the coffee pot finishing its drip. I opened my laptop, emails, dozens, maybe hundreds. Some from strangers, some from people I hadn't heard from in years. A man named James had written, said he used to work with my father. He was proud of you, the message read. Said you were the only one who actually listened. I sat with that for a long while. I didn't feel like I had won. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like reclaiming something that had been quietly mine all along. Later that day, I went out to the garage to organize some boxes, not because I had to, but because I finally had the space to. Tucked in the corner was a small wooden box I hadn't noticed before. My name scratched into it. Z's eyes only. I opened it slowly. Inside was a folded envelope, yellowed at the crease, my father's handwriting. The date on it, a week before he died. I sat down right there on the cement floor and read, "You see more than anyone in this family ever could," he wrote. "You always did. I don't know what's coming, but I know you'll be the one who holds the line. Use that, not to fight, to protect." It wasn't a letter filled with apologies or secrets. It was a reminder that he saw me, that all this time I wasn't crazy or overdramatic or too emotional. I was right to trust myself. By evening, the sun had dipped behind the trees, and I was in the middle of folding laundry when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to answer. "Zelfa?" Harlan's voice, hesitant. "My wife and I. We saw everything. We stayed quiet too long, but listen. We rebooked the cabins. Tahoe. They're under your name now. We figured if anyone deserves that place, it's you." I leaned against the counter, unsure if I should laugh or cry. Instead, I said, "Thank you. I'll go. This time for me." I called Mary from book club. "You feel like a road trip?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. We packed light, just enough for peace. Meanwhile, online, the narrative had shifted. The same news outlets that once ran with Mom's meltdown now ran a new headline. Woman reclaims her worth after family scandal. People stopped seeing me as someone who cracked. They saw someone who chose herself. A nearby community college reached out, asked if I'd come speak to a women's group about boundaries, about breaking cycles. "We think people could learn from how you handled it," the counselor said. I told her yes, not because I had something to prove, but because maybe someone else needed to hear it. I didn't answer any more of Wendy's messages. I didn't need to. But I did open the family group chat one last time. It was silent, like a room after the lights go out. I typed, "Thank you. You've shown me everything I needed to see." Then I archived it. Didn't delete it. Just shelved it where it belonged. Later that night, I stood outside loading the car. Mary walked out with snacks and maps. As we hit the road, I stopped at the state line, rolled down the window, and took a photo. Then I whispered, "Dad, this one's for us." Right then, a buzz, a text from a number I didn't know. "Zelfa, can we talk?" I stared at the screen, took a breath. Closure doesn't always come as a finish. Sometimes it's just a better beginning.